here again. So it's my pleasure to present the fourth session, the last one, speakers. But first, I would like to draw your attention for ICOM new. All of you are going to receive your certificates about the attendance of this conference, but those participants who did not make
Okay, we can shoot it because there are more people. Gustativ.
Who want to get the certificate, let's do it outside when leave your email, okay? So ICOM will send you by email your certificate of presence of this conference, okay? Thank you. So, I think we are approaching for another and a very important aspect of the museum's language. Our museums can, I suppose about this presentation is now in this session, because I think we are going to understand a little, I suppose a bit better our museums with its audience and the visitors. Our museums talk about the ideas behind their collections and their objects. And in fact, I think that it is a very important aspect, maybe the first one, our museums can touch the perception of these visitors through the language of the exhibition. So, my name is José Gamal, I'm from the ICOM board, I'm also from the Museum of Nacional. And I would like to present the first speaker, Professor Uwe Brückner, I suppose. And Uwe Brückner is from 1997. He's running the Atelier Brückner in Germany. And I suppose also is a very eminent authority, the expert of the development of narrative spatial concepts. And I'm totally agree with this phrase, form follows content. And he is responsible for more than 100 exhibition sets and experimental environments for museums and corporate brands. And finally, it is, I suppose, also the creative aspiration to use these stories and content to form special works of art, to get right to the heart of its content and are able to address visitors emotionally and intellectually through all of their senses. So please, Professor Uwe.
Thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. I will share with you some aspects about how we can achieve narrative settings and installations in the museum. And I would like to share with you some of the results we achieved throughout our European project, Eurovision Museum Exhibition, One Object, Many Visions, especially concerning the change of perspective. So therefore I call my lecture today Make Objects Talk by Change of Perspective, and we will see how this is achievable. Any kind of changes in museums always have been perceived only by a change of perspective. So imagine when electric light came to the museums, it completely changed the perception of the visitors as well, not only the instrumentarium for the curators and designs. So therefore, this new approach by Scenography, which of course is deriving from theatre, from the early time the scenography is a holistic approach. It's an integrative approach to how to stage object. And today I'm completely focusing on objects. So what is scenography about? It's about accessible space. It's about the object in relationship with the environment the object is presented. It's about the narrative, the content, the stories that enhance hence the aura of the protagonist. So what you see in the background is not a recent installation, it's Studio Azzurro from Milano and Torino in the early 1980s, imagine. So there was object, there was performances, there was live orchestra coming with it. So this is not a recent innovation. And it's about the change of perspective. It matters how the objects are staged and what kind of dramaturgy is used in an unexpected behind the door scene or behind the window scene. So this is Search on Soul House in London. It's absolutely recommendable to go there. It's only objects, but the staging of the objects is remarkable. And it's about the recipient. We should not forget, it's not the object that they are to be displaced, it's us who want the object being displaced. So this is the physical self, 1991 by Greenaway. So finally, what I call the diamond of suspense is the interaction between the artifact, the space, the contents of the storytelling that is supposed to be conveyed, and the recipient. Finally, it leads us to visitor, so that the entire installation really works. The visitor play a major role in terms of relevance and success of staging objects like the Titanic exhibition of 1997 shows. It was all about people, their fate, and the drama of both immigrants and cruising passengers at that time. And we let 5 people tell their dictionary stories of how they perceived the wreckage of the Titanic. We staged the objects according to the curator's intention and their meaning. For example, these 2 object groups, champagne bottles and a working shoe that were representing first class and third class passengers. We achieved to stage the objects in this shape that provoked the maximum respect to the artifacts and their former owners, like in this what we call the room of silence. And we let the object impress by its emotional power in order to create empathy. So only if we care about it, only if it is addressed to us, we care about what is told by the curators. Or to contextualize the object themselves with the development of an artistic format, like the motion picture machines in the German Film Museum in Frankfurt. To reconstruct a caliber 60 mechanical watch based on the engineer's blueprints that have been scanned and animated to make a complex mechanism explorable shows is interactive. Is it running? Yeah, is interactive, because I only can see it statically here. These interactive tables. So visitors are allowed, visitors are invited to explore the content and the objects being archived in the museum. Recontextualization by a reconstruction of the interpretation of the curator shows the installation of the nails and bolts of a Viking boat as they were found in the riverbed. So the only remainings were the negative imprint of the Viking boat in the riverbed and the nails and bolts. What we did is sort of reconstructed according to the drawings of the curators, which became the front page of all the newspapers when this German National Archeological Exhibition took place in Berlin. Similar parts are completely different perspective. When we were asked to support the largest Viking ship ever found in Denmark, 35 meters, because in this case the curators wanted to emphasize more on the living circumstances of how the Vikings used and operated this large ship. With the help of professional animators, we created an abstract narrative that served as a prologue and epilogue and a rest area, attracting the visitors to explore the exhibition behind the protection walls. So this central installation made it possible that the visitors stayed much longer in the exhibition as it was intended by navigating them from there through the exhibition. Okay. To avoid tiring additive settings, we try to integrate this stage objects, content, and secondary material like authentic film and footage. And in this case, this is the famous Museum at the Lake Constance, very similar to your naval museum, just next door. And what you see is a remarkable collection of 90 models of the same scale, of 90 models. All these flying boats or water planes have been designed by Dornier in showcasing, 4 showcases made from aluminium as the same construction as the airplanes were constructed. And there was a remarkable archive of footage that on-demand visitors may activate the showcase to release the film material connected to the object display. So this person now triggers this little button and changes the showcase into the cinema, showing exactly the film footage that is connectable to the object shown in the showcase. So with that, you can transmit much more information at the same time without tiring the people and integrating to show what the objects were meant to be. So this kind of what I call information on demand is a very democratic approach to the visitors, because they may decide where, when, and how much information they want to retrieve. So what you see here is this is the approach of the Museum in this part of the art exhibition. So there's just objects, nothing else. And if you touch the showcase, you may retrieve from the back the information that the curator has given. What does it mean, the change of perspective? And now I'm coming more or less sooner or later to the examples. It's the central idea of the EMI project, the concept of a change of perspective. It's a method for reinterpreting objects and object groups, revealing the complex diversity of meanings. The transitional objects stand in the focus. So, for example, this is a Bell-Beaker, and the example comes from this museum here, so the Bell-Beaker example. And you now, as a curator and a designer, can look at one and the same object from completely different perspectives. From political point of view, from a merchandising, from a migrant, as Susanne Popp said, or even from a standpoint that was not issued before, as Emma said before. So a museum with a completely new approach, only focused on the object. So what happens is simultaneously appreciations of objects as an element of a local, regional, national, or even European collection. Memorize the traditions and the societies as a part of different cultural, social, historic contexts. So, for example, if you have a typewriter, it might be interesting not only where the typewriter was produced and who owned it, but also the paper or the dramas that had been written on the typewriter, which might be as important and as attractive as the object itself. The task, our task in this case in the EMI project, was the scenography, the synesthetic translation of perspectives. We were supposed to create ideas and develop design concepts for multi-perspective presentations in museums and on museum objects. And this is an exemplary case study that we discussed back and forth. For example, imagine you have from all different European countries, you have a radio, and this radio just is as a case study based on a realistic event. So imagine you are standing in a room completely surrounded by radios, and each radio is coming from the National Museum in Europe, and each radio emits the announcement of the end of the Second World War. And by your surprise, it ended in different European countries at a different time, even at a different day. So the French people are celebrating the end of the World War much earlier than the 5th of May, the official date. And Eastern states, even days after the publication of the ceasefire fire. So this means that one and the same object or a group of objects can attract you and can tell you by the setting, based on the curatorial intention, a completely new perspective on an issue that was connected to the objects. At the same time, the goal is to find new transcultural approaches to stage national objects. In a European context, what you see is the parliamentarian in Brussels in a borderless, on a borderless map, European map, you can explore what the European Parliament was able to do. So what does it mean, one object, many visions, Eurovisions? So one object in this installation is exactly from this museum in the right place where it's located. So you see, there's many objects spread out all over Europe of almost the same period or origin, which tells a different story, has a different meaning in a national context. What are the parameters for scenography? Now I'm rushing through, just to illustrate a bit how you can operate with these parameters is, for example, the object, the content, the space, the resident, so this is the visitor or the addressee, and the dramaturgy, including the routing through an exhibition, as you can see downstairs on the first floor. Again, it means it all relates back to one focal point, and it's the addressee. The German Head Museum in Lindenberg, Bavaria, is an example of how you even can enhance this idea into the future. What you see here is the so-called head tornado, and what you see left and right, there are originals in place. And the rest of the theoretical straw heads, they have the largest straw head collection in the world, as far as we know, is that from time to time, that the abstract straw heads will be replaced by real objects. So the museum also shows the way of collecting to the public. So when you come to this museum in 2 years' time, maybe it's 100 more objects there on display at the same place. The things that have been detached from the original living context, disconnected with their actual functions, meanings, then infused with meaning again in the context of the museum. So this is the National Maritime Museum in Amsterdam, the so-called figureheads. You also can find a lot of figureheads in your museum down there. Which means the object cannot tell about the past until context or the specific concept has been created that relates it to other things, periods or species, and provides an interpretation by the curator. So these two skull fragments are hosted by a computer tomographic reconstruction that shows the visitor what the experiences of the curators were. The focus is on an object with a transitional European character that poses different levels of meaning. For example, this little plate in the central showcase with the engraving of a horse head is illustrated in the surrounding by its European ancestors. So you will find the same engravings in Spain, in Portugal, in France, in Germany. So this is the Saxonian Archaeological Museum. It means the aim is to make the objects talk and to recontextualize the objects. So it is the Geneva Astrological Museum, and all the objects on these boat like the desk were traded. They were never produced or found there in Geneva. They were traded and brought to Geneva to this museum, which automatically, self-explaining, tells the people that these objects were migrants. The content is the narrative of an exhibition. The content represents the overall narrative, the storytelling, the plot, and the message. The content of an exhibition is hardly connected or related to the object, which are or have to be staged. Scenography is about lending shape and form to content, and thus generating new and surprising perspectives like this. Object wall, it hosts more than 1,000 objects in a 40-meter-long wall art. Each of them is in detail explorable with these interactive machines in the fun. Sometimes you have content where you don't have any objects at all, but it's important to convey, like in the Parlamentarium in Brussels, which is an exhibition in 24 languages. So you can walk through this exhibition with a native tongue, wherever you come from Europe, including for sign languages. It looks very much like everything was a media installation. Actually, it wasn't what you have seen so far. It's almost the same like this one. This room is a book. The original book is in the showcase in the center, but the periphery, all the walls are covered with the facsimile of the entire notebook of the Earl of Duke, close to Düsseldorf. Sometimes we have objects on display that hardly can be read or perceived by an ordinary visitor, only by experts, like a Puccini autograph. So only musicians can read it. What we did with our interactive orchestra bit is that visitors can walk through the orchestra with local loudspeakers and follow the single instrument, how they were performed during a score. And as an amateur, you can start reading the score, how the score is perceived. And sometimes it also can be very funny, as you can see here. So this is all about flirting and love. So this exhibition was called love.com. And what you see in the background is a love novel, and all the messages had been hidden in this novel, stretched out over the walls, and only with the pink glasses, with the red glasses, you could decipher it. Yeah, very simple, very funny. So you can imagine we had about the triple amount of glasses to provide, because they were all taken away as a takeaway, which we found was a good idea. Let's come to one object that I actually hate in exhibition. These are books. I'm a book lover. I have a private library of more than 10,000 books, but I hate books on display. Why? Because they're so boring. It's only a spread that you can see, and what happens to the other 300, 400 pages? We definitely depend on the curators to tell us what the content was of the book. So when we were asked, or when we won the competition to do the Textile Industry Museum in Augsburg, we found this extraordinary collection of more than 600 books and 1.2 million patterns. So these pattern books were so fascinating that we said, we need to give access to the public to explore these books. What we did is we scanned the sum of the pattern books and made it possible to give lively access, so in real-time access, so that the visitors can operate the virtual pattern book and use it even as a creative tool. So young designers from all over Europe come to, now I have to manipulate a bit, because we are very short on time. No problem, you will wonder how much I want to show. So, here we go. So, these are the so-called braziers in Augsburg. This is where Susanne Popp is coming from. And you have access to this interactive book. So, you choose one of the patterns, and immediately the pattern is thrown in 3D and in oversize onto these figurines that are permanently turning. And you also can manipulate the patterns, so you can be creative on the spot. You can be creative with the content provided by the curators or the collection. So this draws attention to many, many young designers that come from all over Europe to explore the patterns and do the designs. So the youngsters, they just position their camera and shoot what they were doing on the computer and how they used the patterns. Not to forget the spatial parameter. So space matters. It matters if it's a space like this or a space like you find on the first floor for the permanent exhibition, including the relationship between the objects and the space. Here, navigational instruments in the National Maritime Museum in Amsterdam. And what you see in the periphery, so all the walls on the sides and the ceiling are covered with the northern and southern hemisphere, a night hemisphere for navigation, because this was what the objects were for, navigational instruments. And if you go to this gallery and ask the youngsters, they will show you their app, the navigation app, their GPS app, because they even don't know what a sextant was or what a compass was, because the compass comes from this machine. And all of a sudden, in this installation, they find out, because in the back you see some of the star images that you could shoot with the instruments for formally navigation. That this is also possible for our work shows this one. So this is one of the objects given to us. This is Roma 3. So it's from the colleagues from Roma, and they provided, I will show you later on a bit more in detail, a key. And this is the approach, the scenographical approach, how you can display the key and the content, the background content the key was connected with. I come back to this later. Coming to the initial things that we were working on, it's a so-called scenographic toolkit, and it's just a toolbox that will be published recently. So I'm expecting it every day to be published. There are 5 toolkits, and one of the toolkits we were responsible for the synesthetic translation of perspective. And I just run through with you through some examples to show you that size and budget in museums do not really matter. It only matters according to the intention, according to the vision, according to what you want to achieve with the museum. So for each of these projects, we develop very small size solution and large solution according to the curator's intention. So this Bell-Beaker from 2500 to 2000 before Christ was, as you may remember, a case study for us. And what you see is an installation how we started already in 2013, 2014. And the latest one was this one, a drum. So the same Bell-Beaker in the center, an interactive showcase. This is a very small version you can install everywhere in your museum if you like. And it's absolutely affordable. And then you can sort of rotate the perspective, the abstract perspective on the outside will always give you a different view on one and the same object. The next larger installation would be that you can operate the object, so you have the object on display in a large shelf, as you can see in the background. And you can contextualize it with Europe, because it's not the only Bell-Beaker found here in Portugal. There are many, many Bell-Beakers spread out all over Europe, which means that the European chart is something that you can trigger, and you can play with it, explore it, and find out where other Bell-Beakers are located, in which other museums you can see. Another example I want to show to you is the Enigma machine. And you see there's always very nice titles coming with it from the colleagues from the various partners. And this comes from the National Museum in Slovenia. And you know, the Enigma machine is something really fascinating. It's a myth. And since we know the movie that came out in London 2 years ago, Enigma also became something of an awareness in public life all over Europe. And this original machine and the interactive Enigma, so we were sort of creating or presuming a twin machine that as a facsimile that you really could operate. This is the small installation, so you could operate and really find out how Enigma was working, for example, with the entrance ticket. So the entrance ticket would have been a real code from some event that was sent over an Enigma machine, and you could find out, you could decipher the code on the facsimile Enigma machine. Or in a larger scale, as you can see, is that you also connected with even the movie on the back side, so you have an Enigma machine that you can run on the back side, on the backdrop. of the first chamber, you have the British answer on the German Enigma machine, and even a third proposal. And all of these proposals based on the same content, based on the same intention of the curators, by the way, is collecting many more other Enigma machines from other national museums, for example, in Europe, to gather them and to let them tell their stories in a greater European context. With the next one, I want to share this with you because you see, the objects are completely different. So we have a metal machine that is actually a mysterious calculator, and we have a canvas here, so we have a screen. Actually, it's a paragon. So the so-called number screen, and this screen is like it's like a script. It's like a movie script because it does not only show one particular moment. It shows a period of years of trading between Europe and Asia. And now you can see how we handled it. So we have the original on the other side. We have the opportunity, for example, interactive monitor in this case, to explore it and to explore any story that is shown on the screen by a synchronized light that is always stressing out exactly that section that you were triggering on the monitor, or even the derivates, so the European or the Asian derivates. So all of the motifs that are shown on the number screen are connected now in life size on these curtains that you can see. And even the largest version that you have in the center, which requires a much larger room. Are we still in time? Shall I continue? Yeah? Okay. You just... Sorry?
Depends on how much time you still have.
Yeah, so you just stop me, okay? You just say stop A very interesting object we found was this one. Well, as I said, this was all given by the curators to us. And actually, it's very helpful if the curators attract the designers. So if the curators give a feeling or transport a feeling that the objects that they should think of and that they should stage are of fascinating stories behind, like this one. So this holy water vessel, which contains a Chinese cup and a Greek surface or cover from the outside from the 19th century. And now you see how this was supposed to be a display. Just in one showcase, they can do everything. The showcase is like the cinema I showed you before, but in a much smaller scale, with all the opportunities of the background installation, including the secondary object that were given to us, and to relate it back to the European content, and even in a larger scale, for example, surrounded by an interactive screen, so you are completely embedded in Europe and other vessels, other holy water vessels on display. Another proposal of the same kind, and a completely different object is porcelain, and the porcelain plate coming from the colleagues from Paris. And they wanted to compare it with this Greek vase from 500 BC, and you see that this plate, the larger plate, was from the period of the French Revolution that was spread out all over Europe. So we analyzed the quality of both. And the curator said, well, we don't want to have a regular museum, a regular display. We wanted to show that this object is just one of hundreds of thousands of objects spread over Europe, transporting the idea of revolution. It was made as a gift, as something, as a takeaway, as a giveaway to export the French Revolution, and therefore we designed a shop. Of course, it's not a real shop, but it's a shop with museology quality. And you see, you enter the shop and everything is on display, as it was in the background. You have the opportunity to explore Europe and see and find out where all these objects had been traded and displayed. We have different sizes, so this requires one, if not two rooms, but you also can concentrate on one desk on a display. You even can buy it, so there's a mingling real shop and the museum shop at the same time, which might be interesting for the discussion of an original and authentic object. And with the last one that I promised to you, the key provided by Leonardo and her team, this key is fascinating and not. So if this key is in the showcase, we have many other keys around, it may attract the visitors if they were not experts, maybe 5 to 10 seconds, and that was it. It's like a book. But if you connect this key and others, for example, with the purpose it was supposed to. So, for example, keys of different kind, opening different doors, and you let the visitors take these keys, the facsimile of these keys, and open up the various doors with the connected keys, and found later out. So you see in the distance, around room with the chart of Europe, you can idealistically attract the people to the recontextualization of the object in European content by a completely different perspective. You can imagine that these corridors that are deriving from the maze of a lock, so it looks like the machinery in a lock can idealistically connect the people with the message. And sorry for that. I want to close my short lecture with the statement, which is something that we learned from this project, from this international European project. We learned as a theoretical approach, and we found out that this is already happening in practice, but we don't have the awareness for it, but we need to. In the future, our migrants, visitors, will be the majority, not the locals one. Independently from what happens in Europe at the moment. We perceived this in the Rautenstoff Museum in Cologne, where we staged 150 ethnics in the ethnological museum there. It's exactly almost the number of ethnics living in Cologne. And the same will happen everywhere in Europe. So we need to connect our citizens of migrant background with their former culture and their local culture. And this connectivity, I think this is a fantastic task and a fantastic challenge. Actually, I believe the museum is like a boat, an anchored ship, the real venue where objects are representing our culture, locally, regionally, internationally, but always dynamic and deeply depending on a permanent change of perspective. Thank you very much.
For your inspiring and vision of this multi-layered capacities of understanding and show us an object in the museum. So, I will go the floor immediately to our friends from my fine arts school also. So, I suppose there are two professors, two teachers, and two students that are presenting some of these maybe ideas that we have been shown by you about this Bell-Beaker from 3,090 years ago. So I give the floor to Isabel Dâmaso, Mariano Piçarra, Tiago, Jordão, and Leonardo Rosseti. So I suppose you will start, Isabel. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. My greetings to everyone present here this afternoon. One special greeting to Professor Hans Martin, President of ICOM, to Dr. Antonio Carvalho, Director of this house, to Dr. Mariano, coordinator of this event, and Dr. José Gameiro from ICOM Portugal, and designer Uwe Brückner, with whom I have the pleasure to share this stage. Also Michael, Piçarra, and the team of students that are with us. Leonardo. We are here to present one of the projects submitted to the Young Scenographers contest. First of all, I'd like to express my gratitude to the director of the Archeology National Museum, to the coordinator of the event, the invitation they direct me to be here today to share with this excellent audience our work. I also want to thank Dr. Mariano and the editor Isabel for the scientific support they gave to the study done for this purpose. I start to introduce who we are and how we became participants in the contest. Me and Mariano Piçarra are responsible for the classes where students in a team of 4 developed the concept. Tiago, Jordão, and Leonardo Rosseti represent the students' team and will explain the concept and design process behind the proposal. Our academic background belongs to Faculty of Fine Arts of the University of Lisbon, more precisely to the Master in Equipment Design, that is, more commonly, Product and Interior Design. The Faculty of Fine Arts in Lisbon is the oldest higher-level education school of fine arts and design in Portugal and is rooted in the Fine Arts Academy founded in 1836. It has transformed into an art school which is linked to contemporary art and design with the active role in the present-day culture. The Master in Equipment Design exists since 2008 and was sought to take further the consolidation of knowledge obtained in the first degree bachelor, done in part through a model of work in partnership with external entities like companies, organizations, and cultural institutions. To increase the level of specialized skills available, it is organized in 3 branches: product design, interior improvement design, and design studies. Whether the first two branches, product design and interior and urban design, correspond to the usual approach to design projects in product, interior, or urban domain, the design studies offer an optional approach, one that is more related with the reflection about the cultural consequences produced by design. In this sense, it encounters in the development of competencies in writing and curating the suitable way of working for the dissemination of the design culture. And it's here that we feel the relevance of learning in the historic building, plenty of historical references. Located. cultural center of the city in the convent founded in the 13th century, we may feel immersed in the cultural dimension of arts and humanities. The school history is overlapped with the story of Fine Arts Academy, which also was, for some years, the National Council for Arts and Archeology. But the prompt is to take the cultural heritage to the present days, offering new chances of understanding our identity and acting on the shape of contemporaneity. This is an exhibition done in design studies classes in a partnership with the Museum of Craft and Design in Edinburgh for the FBAUL Design Collection. The concept disposes 23 chairs of Portuguese designers from the 19th century to the 21st century. Students worked on exhibition design and on the production of contents displayed. But design studies is also about transdisciplinarity, the ability of making bridges between different areas of knowledge, making a broad field of and research and search for opportunities not yet explored. Through the eyes of the designer, we believe to be able to proportionate new ways of seeing everyday things, giving new meanings to the landscape that surrounds us and that we think already to know. It was with this conviction in mind that emerged a collaboration with the Arqueology National Museum 2 years ago. Design and archaeology have the same passion for material culture, but they use quite different methods to produce knowledge that is applied in distinct ways. As such, another team of students looked for the inventory of this museum and explored the concept that identified groups by types of use, sacred, secular, public-private, individual, collective, symbolic, practical. Then they constructed a narrative about connection between a selection of each type of artifacts and their possible contemporary correspondence, discussing how would be the archetypal reference to each artifact opens a whole world of meaning and qualities, most of them people in general are not aware of. This was thought to be a rich point of departure for a curatorial concept to be developed. One that would bring new publics that may be interested in design or even contemporary lifestyle to material culture museums, reflecting on many dimensions of our collective and individual relation with objects in this world. That our role as cultural agents dignifies our time and catches each time even more people to the cause of museums. That's what we pretend to have proportionate with the participation of our students in the unique contest. Now they explain if so and how. Thank you.
Good afternoon. So now me and my colleague Leonardo Rosseti will talk about our project for this contest. First, we will just congratulate the winner of the contest. And our project is about the Bell-Beaker vase, which was already mentioned here in the previous presentation. As designers, our objective was to propose an exhibition that not only shows artifacts or gives information, but also gives the visitor a different experience. It tells the story with the objects and the scenography. So, why did we choose this object? But for two main reasons. As designers, we were very interested and captivated by the simplicity of the design, by its subtle shape, and we felt that it had the great power of communication. This object had a universal readability. We immediately felt this way when we saw the object. The second reason is that this object, this artifact, was a phenomenon for two reasons. One is that it lasted for 1,000 years, from around 4,900 before Christ and to 3,900 BC. And it spread all over Europe. So we thought this object really matched the goals of this contest, which was to portray an European culture and European diversity. Now I will talk a bit about the research for this contest. First, we learned a lot about the graves, which were the places where archaeologists found most of the entire Bell-Beaker bases, and it was also they were also sites of great importance to this culture because of the ritual, the burial rituals. Important persons were the ones buried with the bases. We also researched many different patterns of decoration. We found that all of them had different patterns throughout Europe. So the patterns speak a bit about how the same cultural phenomenon is expressed all throughout Europe. They also express the importance of the base owner. Other objects were found along with the bases, mostly arrowheads and plates for protection for the archer. And although they speak about the utilitarian aspects, most of these objects were gifts and trade offerings. We also found many different maps that showed the diffusion of the base and that suggested different theories of how this base appeared in so many places in what we now call Europe. But the important thing was that all these maps had in common the fact that the base was in many places in the territory. We also visited an archaeologist, an experimental archaeologist in Sessão, in the center of Portugal, and he showed us how, his name is Pedro, and he showed us how they believe the base was made. So very short. They make the center, then they make the rolls to put around the center, and we smooth. Then they make a long sheet of clay, and which they attach to the base, and then they smooth everything again with the base upside down. Then we started thinking about the base and speculating about it, and we found a very expressive aspect of the base, which was it could be divided into two sections, the interior and the exterior of the base. And we started thinking of ideas about how we could use these dialectics, these two aspects, and we extended this idea to other dimensions of the Bell-Beaker culture, which are present in the grave, and we also thought about how this could relate to the museum space. So, for example, in the Bell-Beaker, the interior we associated with space, content, usefulness, and biological survival, while in the exterior we associated with visuality, form, symbolism, and social survival. And with the extent of the museum, we may ask questions about subjectivity, objectivity, based on the differences from what is inside and outside the museum. Now my colleague will talk a bit more about how we develop this into the museum concept, the exhibition concept.
Good afternoon. I will talk about our experience on this contest. the concourse of Scenography. And I will try to explain how we see connection, all this information that my colleague told about the Bell-Beaker, and how we transform these elements into visual and space effects. We decided to put for all this information two big groups. We separate and for the both sides of the base, and this means that you separate again. Inside is more about the concrete and the object features like shapes, materials, use, and another relation to objects. And for the others outside is more subjective means and sus, like status, meanings, relation with the groups, and migrations. We explore some visual connection with this information to produce some relations, like space and distance, like dimensions and proportions, organization and division. We create a narrative to tell the story of the Bell-Beaker, paralleling of the life of the man, a person, from that age. From the word to the left, with the construction to the glory of the base. We associate some elements to help to connect this story, like the clay, artifacts, groups, traits, rivers, patterns, rituals, and the burial. We decide to use the anti-clockwise direction to tell this reference, and to tell these stories are like a reference to the grave, because we believe it's the first contact we have to the base, and we get more information from that. And this is where ends the life of that person we want to talk about. But this is the first stage of the, we believe they think start a new life of them. To the concept, we divide in 4 sections. The first is the birth, is about the construction and the building, and about the materials, the clay, the techniques, is some relation with Africa. The second, we decided to put the exchange, is a communication, the rules, the object traits, the connections with another parts of the order, and the river. The next is diffusion, is about the different patterns, identity, utility, and dissemination of this object. And the last one is the grave, is respect about status, and rituals, and the caves, and some theories about the afterlife. These pictures about, first should we have a connection in the space, in the relationship with the visitor. We use some models and maquettes. We choose 3 colors of the exposition, the exterior. Is this a reference to the three colors of the clay we have? It's the red, the black, and the white. And with this maquette, we try to explore some routes and paths, and we decide in the end not put one single way, but let the visitor choose and explore the exhibition and discover new things or feel different.
So now we will explain a bit how we created the paths and the story for each of these sections of the exhibition. So this is the first one. In the first one, it was about the clay, the birth. We used references to the transformation of clay and also to archaeological studies of patterns. This would be one possible entrance for the exhibition, but not the only one. because we wanted people to move around freely. The middle section, it's about the river, and this glass showcase was meant to represent the river and the objects that were then brought along the river whenever they encountered other cultures, other Bell-Beaker cultures. I also will take notice of the several vases you can see here. They each belong to a region, a different region of Europe. And in this section, which was about the patterns and the diffusion, we would have two video projections. The one projected from the inside structure would be a very fast transition of patterns in reference to the production of meat and psychotropic substances inside the vase. It's believed they use the vase also for that kind of use. And the other one on the outside of the curved surface would be a slower projection of the same patterns, which would represent the dissemination and the contact between various Bell-Beaker cultures on base of the patterns. On the final section, we will make a reference to the grave and the burial sites. And this is why the vase is in the lower part of the plinth, because in that way we thought it would be a good way to express the burial idea. Also, we added the other objects that were found inside burial places. In here you can have an idea of how the exhibition will look from a top perspective. And we also were concerned about the visibility of the exhibition, and I mean how the visitor, when standing in one place near one vase, could see afar most of the other vases. So it would create connections between the different vases and the different regions just by looking at the vases in the distance. We also had some technical concerns. These curved structures, they would be made from 3 different sized cylinders, and they would be modular sections, which would be easier to assemble and disassemble and then to transfer. This is just to give you an idea of some of the technical details. Also about how we would build the showcases, the height of the showcases, and we tried to guarantee that if they were built, they would stand and they would be connected with the round surfaces without causing any inconvenience. Now I'm just going to show you a short video of the exhibition that we would like to have happened, and of the experience we intended for the visitor. Sorry.
you very much.
Well, thank you for your sharing your concept and the whole process of this experience. But now it's time no more to the objects talk, but the people talk. That means you. So if you have audience.
I have a question for Professor Brückner. In Portugal, as you know, we have a problem with our budget, even concerning culture. So, how to achieve the maintenance of this marvelous, ideal, efficient, interactive and educational sonography in thematical, regional, national, and contemporary museums with a low budget?
The most difficult question at the beginning, as always. Well, I mean, if you want to drive a car, you need petrol. So you need to go to the petrol station and buy either 1 liter or 10 or 100 liter, it depends how far you want to go. Or you can just look at it from the other side. So you have 50 euros, and in Germany now it's about 99 cent the liter, so you may drive 100 kilometers with your budget, with 100 euro, 1,000 kilometers for your budget. So I cannot really answer this question precisely and definitely, but what I can answer is that with creativity you can achieve fascinating installation with low budgets. So, for example, in our office, the range per square meter for an exhibition starts from about 300 euros and ends up maybe by 10,000 euros. It does not mean that the 10,000 euros per square meter is more fascinating than the 300 euros per square meter. It needs smartness, and it needs definitely a collaboration of curators and designers from the scratch, from the earliest moment on. Usually, for new museums, almost all over the world, it starts with a competition for architects. And the architects have a very small, little, not very distinguished briefing and start to create palaces. And there's no budget left for the exhibition. Very often this happens, I can tell you. So in your case, if the building is existing, it's very important to decide which kind of size you want to use. But it is possible to use this room of about 150 to 200 square meters and just position one object, one Bell-Beaker in this room, and everybody will be fascinated. Just by light, just by a smart content installation. As I said, it depends on creativity, and the students show it. So you can spend on this project thousands or 10,000 of euros, but you also can realize it was a couple of, let's say, 3,000 to 5,000 euros. I refuse to say that the budget is responsible for the impact. Because, of course, as I said, if you are not able to pay for your petrol, you cannot drive a car. Yeah, it's the minimum of budget you need to achieve something.
Thank you so much.
I hope that serves you.
Thank you.
One more question.
Hi, I listened to both of your presentations, and I'm sure I speak for everybody on the subgroup. We think it's wonderful how much reflection goes into these processes of designing for exhibitions that are temporary or permanent. However, in both cases, I have heard of the articulation of dialogue between designer and curator, and I haven't heard yet the word educator. I haven't heard the word visitors and visitor experience. In the pictures I have seen, and again, I am truly mesmerized, I am particularly concerned about the conditions of visitation for groups and people with either intellectual, social, or physical access issues. And my question is, how much do you think that your process of design, in as much as it's limited to the dialogue with the curators, then it reflects in design issues that need to be solved once the space is open to the public?
Is it a question for Mr. Brückner?
The question, I'd like the professors to answer.
Professor, do you want to answer this? The expert in museography is here. When we think about a design solution, we always put the experience of the user, the visitor in this case, in the center of the solution. Maybe we didn't refer, because it's so obvious for us that maybe we don't refer it. But it's the concern is present, and the video is about the sensorial experience that we want to transmit and for the user to experience, but also when thinking about translating the idea to the concrete space and physical structures that with the exhibition could be made. The questions about accessibility, inclusivity are always under concern. They are not the main point when we are developing the concept, but when we look for the details of the project, they will come with the development of the work done.
Well, education in some areas or some countries in Central Europe has quite a negative connotation, let's say it this gently. Well, I mean, you can educate the people by teaching them how they should read and perceive. Then you will lose them after a while because they get fed up with being taught. But you can educate them in a smart way by letting them explore. Then it means it needs engagement and it needs the participation of the people. And on the other hand, you give them the chance to decide, as I said, where, when, and how much information to withdraw or to reveal. And according to what I've learned, so I'm now 31 years in the business, and all these evaluations I read about how visitors, or let's say addressees, it also it's the same in the more commercial area, how people perceive sustainably. So why do the people remember some things and why do they lose some things? And there's a red thread, a common experience running through. It says whenever you create a certain awareness to something, it stays much longer in your heads and in your archive things that is like a shower, you know, and it's pearls running down, it's not intruding you. So this is something that I did not experience. I read it, but I can confirm. Yeah. So in some of the so-called interactives I showed to you, this is just a simple technique that was a bit costly when it was developed, but it's the standard now. Yeah. So an interactive table like this, you have it in every counter. I mean, go to Asia, you cannot buy a sandwich if not writing the signature on an interactive table there. Like it or not, but this is reality. I have two daughters, 18 and 22 years old. For them, I'm old school and old fashioned because I only have 10 apps on my iPhone and they have 100. So, you know, this is the second part of the answer. The perception of the younger generation changes much faster than we think and than we are used to. So a museum design, let's say 15, 20 years ago, was supposed to last 20 years. And nowadays, I can show you the briefs we get for competitions of a new design. There it says maximum 7 years. Yeah, because then technique, perception changes. But there's one thing that you should not forget. This is more or less my credo. This is very much to do with so-called education or exploration, is the advantage of a museum, of an exhibition, is what Gio Ponti said in the late 1960s. The difference between a theater and a cinema, comparing with an exhibition, is that you can walk around the story. So, according to that, I think the advantage of our museums is the real thing, the authentic experience on site. So the museum requires our physical presence. It's not just robot 24 hours via the internet. It needs my physical presence, otherwise it won't work. And this is something that I really like.
Any questions? No? Okay, so before the exhibition and the closing session, I will thank you all of you, and I will ask for our reporter, Mariano. Please, thank you.
Good afternoon. This morning I was playing with my friend and colleague Joana Sousa Monteiro. And now I'm playing volleyball. It's not an easy task to do the report of this magnificent day. And to me it was a very, very good day, which it changed experiences, and it's very, very important working day. The project, the MA project, it's dealing with important and urgent discussion about Europe, about us, about the role of education in our Europe and in our days. Thank you all, because it was a day of plenty of experience and new ideas. I just want to resume these ideas in a very, very, very short way, and I think it's my paper here to let you with more questions and to go out there and to do things different after this day. I want to give you my reading of this day. I think I want to share the main ideas in my perspective during this work day, and I will be with the main keywords and the main questions to go out there and do the in the morning, we were in first section. We have a question. I think it's an important question, and I want to share again with you who we are and how we can share a human future. I think it's the main question for all today, and it's an important question for us working in museums. Museums are meeting places in these difficult times, and we can share different and difficult questions there, and we can discuss there these questions. I think it was one of the another idea I want to share with you. And almost all the speakers said or touched this thing, the idea of values. It's very important. The questions of the values, human values, the story of being human. I think one of the speakers said that also. And related to that, it's a very important thing, our ethical code of professional museums. Also a thing that we have here, approaches and speeches about that. And that is related, it's important that museums have new skills there, new professional skills there, because living in this world and museums like social awareness, it's another key word and expression during all day. We need new professionals inside the museums. And then we have also another idea in all the day. It's important also the visitors, but the non-visitors. Also in our professional role and in our professional work. I think it's a very, very important issue. And we do another key word in this. I think it was all the speeches, the change of perspective. It's very, very important. This last session in the design exhibition and the scenography also talked with us about the change of perspective that they could help us to share new ideas and new visions of the object, and that is very, very important. Our role to the change of perspective, the change of perspective inside the museum, outside the museum, with the public and with other professionals in the museums. And another key word was participation. It's a very important, and our friend Mario related participation to a happy museum. And to me, it's a very, very important way to deal with this and with museums. I think another key issue to happy museums is not to have museums outside the society, but inside the society. The questions and the issues related to social things, it's a very important way also to act in our context in museums. And for that, our meeting here is the role of education to transform our practice in museums, to engage public, to change, to make a better world, I think, with our collections, with our practice, and to have another Europe. I think in all the speeches also, I can understand a meaning that we have a very important role in museums, because we have the objects to tell a story of the past, but also to tell the story of the future of Europe. And Luís Raposo told us that museums are the landmark of Europe, and I think this is important for us. And in nowadays, I think we all have to do something about that, not only in our speeches, but in our professional day work. I just want to finish with two ideas. The first one is that it's not a good idea, but I want to tell it because the NEMO president told us that we don't have an European museum policy and that we don't have a cultural European policy. And we have to think about it because these projects, that M is one of them, are important projects. But if you don't have policymakers to inside their agendas to put the museums in the culture, I think it's a very hard work for us, and it's very important for us. Because of that, I want to. I think this day would help us to put two things in the agenda. The first one is education in the agenda of inside our museums, because here in this room we all share the same or the most same idea of education and of the role of education inside the museums and for the public. But the museum educators or the education in museums is another thing. The education in museums even are not in the center of the agendas inside the museums, and I think it would be a very important thing if it was. And the second one, I think museums have to are inside the agendas of the European policymakers. This is an important thing. Nowadays, when Europe, I don't know what the future, nobody knows, but museums could be a partner, an important partner to continue the peace and the safety in Europe. And I think it's our important thing, important work. We are not a social institution, but we are an identity institution, and Europe needs identity. And today we share here projects that we saw the identity of Europe, and I think it's a very, very important thing we share here, and we have to share more to all of our colleagues. I just want to finish with two things. One is a civilian poet that says that is no path, the path is walking, is doing the work. We do the path on walking, and I think we are doing this with these projects, and because of that, museums are places to call on the world. Thank you all.
Muito obrigado a todos pela vossa presença até agora. Para o encerramento desta sessão, contamos também com a presença da senhora Fala sobre a diretora-geral do Património Cultural e vice-presidente da Casa, a final words for the ending of this wonderful seminar. I'd just like to say one small to all the participants who Professor Martin, our colleagues, presidents of the international committees, and all of you involved in this project, how important it was for us to hear this experience about the objects, about the education, and about how to communicate with visitors. I hope to see you more here in Lisbon, in Archeology, and another monument, Portuguese monument. Thank you so much for your participation.
Boa tarde. Em nome da Direção-Geral do Património Cultural, queria começar por cumprimentar o Presidente do ICOM, queria cumprimentar também o Presidente da NEMO, e assim como os Presidentes do ICOM SECA e do projeto ME, que vamos depois mais tarde ver uma exposição. Queria cumprimentar e agradecer a participação dos colegas da Direção-Geral do Património Cultural, nomeadamente o Dr. Alberto Ferreira e o Dr. Trabalho, pelo empenho e pela participação que tiveram nesta organização de vários dias de trabalhos, nomeadamente nesta conferência, ou neste conjunto de conferências que a doutora Dalma Palma fez ainda há pouco o resumo e que tenho muita pena não ter podido estar presente, mas pelo menos posso saudá-los e agradecer a vossa presença. O tema, um objeto, muitas visões, ou várias maneiras de se verem, ou várias maneiras de serem apresentados, ou várias maneiras de se poderem expor, é um dos desafios mais interessantes que se colocam a quem trabalha na área dos museus e na sua esfera. E eu diria que, além da maneira de se apresentar, eventualmente aquilo que é fundamental é fazer com que os outros percebam que um objeto tem muitas maneiras de ser visto, e é essa mensagem que é fundamental que seja passada para o exterior, é que as leituras são aquilo que nós devemos deixar às pessoas, que elas possam ver e perceber esses objetos que nós temos à nossa volta e que se constituem um dos patrimónios fundamentais nossos e que são um desafio exatamente de uma forma como os devemos colocar na sociedade. E, portanto, agradecendo a vossa presença, agradecendo a participação de todos os colegas da Direção-Geral que participaram na organização, sugeria que fosse agora uma combinação de trabalhos